So you're the judge. You just sentenced an 18-year-old to death by hanging, and that 18-year-old first reaction is to smile at you. Hello everyone, this is Kabir Aditya. Welcome to my new show where I tell stories. One person's story per episode, one episode per week. For those of you who are new to my channel, this first season has been dedicated to the unsung heroes who fought for the freedom and independence of India. This is to celebrate the 75th Independence Day, which is supposed to be next year. Similar to Matangini Hazra, whose story I told in the previous episode, this brave and young man, Mr. Khudiram Bose, was born in Medinipur district of Bengal, in the small village named Mohobani. He was the fourth sibling along with his three elder sisters. He was born to a very humble family who barely made ends meet. Before he was born, his family had already lost two sons who had passed away prematurely. Sadly, Khudiram had also lost his mother at the tender age of 6. A year after that, he had lost his father as well. He was 7 years old and alone, a very vulnerable boy who could easily be lured into suspicious activities by any stranger he could meet. Thankfully, his elder sister and her husband had taken him into their house. They had even admitted to him to a local school, where as he grew older and became a teenager, he took interest in the private lectures and the public sessions that were conducted by the revolutionary groups who were also struggling to fight for the freedom of India. One such revolutionary group Khudiram Bose had joined was known as Anushilan Samitri. In Bengali, this is known as the Bodybuilding Society. This group was formed in 1902 within Bengal by the local youth groups and people who went to akharas. Akhara is just a local term for gym. This revolutionary group tried to get freedom for India, but these were the ways that Mr. Mahatma Gandhi had not approved of. It was through means of violence. Khudiram had already been arrested once at the age of 15 when he was caught trying to distribute pamphlets that were against the British rule. By the time he was 16, he had already started participating in trying to bomb certain key places and trying to assassinate key government officials. This is where the real story unfolds. Khudiram Bose, along with Praful Chaki, were planning to assassinate the Chief Presidency Magistrate D.H. Kingsford of Muzaffarpur, a district located in present-day Bihar. They might have been very young, but I assure you, they would have given James Bond a run for their money. They would even observe Kingsford's activities for about 3 weeks, and they had even managed to change their names and hide their identities. Khudiram Bose was Harin Sarkar and Prafula Chaki was Dinesh Chandra Roy. They had used those names to stay in a local motel nearby to where Kingsford would reside. They would pretend to be just regular schoolboys having a stroll in the Muzaffarpur Park, located opposite to the British Club. Kingsford was a regular visitor to the park along with his family. This made it easier for the boys to monitor their target regularly. So one such day, Kingsford was visiting the Muzaffarpur Park along with his wife. They were further accompanied by a British magistrate named Pringle Kennedy, along with his wife and daughter. So after they spent their leisure time at the park, at around 8:30 p.m, they decided to head back home. They got into their carriages and were just about to leave. So as Khudiram Bose and Prafula Chaki were observing them for 3 weeks or so, they saw that the carriages started moving. As soon as the carriage went down the road, they ran towards the carriage and threw bombs at them. Once the explosions occurred, the people in the carriages had no idea what just happened to them. They somehow managed to reach home. Once they reached home, Mr. Kennedy realized that his wife and his daughter had sadly passed away due to the injuries from the bombings. Now the key detail to note here is that the carriage of Mr. Kennedy's family and the carriage of Mr. Kingsford's family were very identical to each other. The boys had mistakenly thrown the bombs in Mr. Kennedy's family's carriage instead of their original target. Khudiram Bose was eventually arrested right after he had thrown the bombs. However, just about Prafula Chaki was about to be arrested afterwards, he had fatally shot himself in the mouth because he wanted to prevent himself from being arrested by the British police. On a sidetrack, I mean, how could these 18-year-old or so not only plan and execute this plan to near perfection, but somehow have the courage to do so. I mean, at that age, if someone had said something and I didn't understand them, I didn't have the courage to ask them to repeat it. Now back to Khudiram's story. His first trial was presented in front of the court on 21st of May 1908. His case was defended by 6 other prominent Indian lawyers who were doing it for free because their main goal was also try to get independence from the British rule. A couple of days later, in the next day of the trial, defending lawyers had asked Khudiram to resubmit his statement in front of the judge, in which he explicitly stated denying any involvement or responsibility in any aspect or stage of the entire mission and operation down to bombing. Initially, Khudiram was very reluctant to sign this statement. However, he was persuaded by his defending lawyers to do so. Now they're waiting in front of the jury, and the defending lawyers of Khudiram are hoping that the jury would go easy on Khudiram with their punishment due to his age. To their shock, the jury had continued to punish Khudiram with death by hanging. Can you imagine the audacity this kid had? I mean, the judge was so confused, he had to reassure with Khudiram whether he had understood what his punishment had meant. Khudiram would eventually go on to say to the judge that he surely did, with that smile and grin on his face. So now the judge is even more confused. However, he still gives Khudiram a chance to give his final word in front of the packed audience in the court. Khudiram, smiling at the judge, he looks down, still smiling, he looks back up at him. If you could give me some more time, I will teach you the art of bomb making. Can you imagine the scene? So Khudiram's lawyers, to their shock, they would try to appeal again. Somehow persuaded Khudiram to resubmit his statement or appeal for the hearing within the 7 days period. Khudiram reluctantly agreed. So now the defending lawyers were trying to get a second hearing or try to get an easier punishment on the legality basis. For example, they had said that Khudiram was not asked questions in his own mother tongue, which is Bengali. They had asked him questions only in English. Secondly, they had even said that it was mandatory for him to submit his statement in front of the first-class magistrate who was not present in the courtroom. Lastly, the defending lawyers had pretty much shifted most of the blame to Prafulla Chakki, his other partner in crime. They had said that he was stronger, he was smarter, he was older, and he was the one who actually had more idea of the bomb making. Defending lawyers are hoping that there will be an easier punishment for Khudiram. They're still waiting. The court eventually said that the final judgment would be passed on 13th of July 1908. So on the judgment day, everyone, the packed audience, Khudiram's lawyers and Khudiram are eventually there. Khudiram is still smiling. It seems like he has accepted his fate. Unfortunately, they had passed on the judgment, death by hanging for Khudiram. Now, even in this final seconds during the day of his punishment, he still had that smile on his face. Even when they were putting that black cloth on his face before the hanging would eventually occur, the smile hadn't faded away. Can you imagine putting that black cloth and you still see that smile when he's dying on his final moments? And his final words, Vande Mataram, which eventually means long live the mother. Basically, mother referring to as Mother India. I'm not here to judge about Khudiram or his actions or how he chose the path of violence in order to try to get freedom for India. My job here is to tell stories of people. In this story, I feel it needs to be told because of the sheer courage and audacity this mere 18-year-old kid had shown. I mean, he really had a tough life. He was already orphaned at the age of 7. He had no one to pretty much guide him through life. Imagine with the courage and audacity and the street smart skills he had, and he was guided properly by someone higher authority, maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't be part of the list of the unsung heroes. He might have been part of the one who got freedom for India. On a final note, I hope you all enjoyed the episode, and if you did, please try to convince the like button to become friends with the subscribe button again. And I will see you next week. Take care. Ciao, ciao.